Good evening all. Welcome to your first Premier League video verdict of the new season, where things have possibly, rather predictably, ended in a heavy defeat for Norwich, a 4-1 loss to European champions, of course, Liverpool. The story isn't quite over there though. In the end, the Norwich fans that were packed into that away end, 3,000, and quite a lot of them, like us, had a pretty difficult journey up to Anfield today. It took us 7 hours. I think it took people on the coaches a lot longer. But at the full-time whistle, they were singing "There's Only One Daniel Farke." There was a heck of a lot of pride in that away end because, in the end, Norwich really showed some character, really showed what they can do, really showed some of the football that they did last season that brought them to this point. But the Premier League is an absolutely ruthless division, as Norwich fans know from the previous seasons at this level that horrible things can happen, and unfortunately it was in just the 7th minute that things started to go wrong tonight. Unfortunately, it was for poor Grant Hanley, who swung at a Divock Origi cross from the right, from Norwich's right. He'd got past Max Aarons. Hanley sort of started to swing at the ball as if he was going to clear it, then tried to pull out of it thinking, I'm not going to make this, and instead he just sliced the ball past Tim Krul into his net. And you have to say, your heart really went out for Grant. He looked crestfallen, really upset, because all that build-up, all that hope, all the hype since the middle of June, since we knew that Norwich would be starting with what is pretty much the most difficult game you could be starting, with the whole football world watching. I don't know what the exact figure would be, but it's hundreds of millions, I think, in terms of the households this is going out to around the world. This is as high profile as it gets. The first game back at Anfield since Liverpool won the Champions League in June. And as you can imagine, the atmosphere at kickoff was something pretty special. "You'll Never Walk Alone" was belted out. It was emotional. The place was rocking. And when that happened, Norwich were really in it then. They were in the eye of the storm. They were really... It could have been terrible. It could have been 6-7-0. It could have been the worst possible situation after a pretty big bit of bad luck. And there was more to come. Liverpool attacked down the right. Jamal Lewis almost got a ball clear, but the ball deflected off Tom Tribal, I think it was, into Roberto Firmino's pass. He passed it on to Mo Salah. That's a man you do not want 10 yards from your goal, and he clinically finished under Tim Krul into the far bottom left corner. That's 2-0. And then the corner problems, which, to be fair, was an issue during the title success of last season. They reared their head again. It was a corner. Jamal Lewis, for some reason, was marking Virgil van Dijk, no less, a man being talked about as the potential Ballon d'Or winner. Right from the moment that the cross came in, it looked like Lewis wasn't going to win the ball if it came to a battle between him and Van Dijk. He didn't. He was out-muscled. Van Dijk, such a good player, of course. I think he was 75 million they paid for him from Southampton, something in that region, a serious amount of money. He powered that header in. That was 3-0. And at this point, to be frank, Norwich were looking like rabbits in the headlights, and it did get worse as well. Trent Alexander-Arnold, England right back, so good, of course. His delivery, him and Andrew Robertson were the leading assist makers for Liverpool last season from those fullback roles. They are pivotal players for them. Alexander-Arnold whips it in. Divock Origi, the man who sealed the Champions League for them against Spurs, of course, in Madrid, nips in between Hanley and Max Aarons and nods in from close range. Again, Tim Krul with very little chance. But there's more to the story than that. Marcus Stiepermann had a couple of early chances that he skied, that he should have done better with. Emi Buendia put Timu Pukki through and didn't quite manage to chip Alisson, who did go off in the first half as well. He was replaced by Adrian, the former West Ham goalkeeper. Pukki was offside for that one anyway, and he didn't finish it. Stiepermann did test Adrian, I think it was Adrian by that point, with a sort of rasping shot from the edge of the box. And the stat apparently that was on Sky Sports during the game was that Norwich's 7 attempts on goal was more than any team managed at Anfield in all of last season. So they were 4-0 down at half-time, but in general play, it was the Norwich that we know and that fans love from last season. There was lots of good, intricate attacking play. Buendia played well. Todd Cantwell got the start on such a big night. Daniel has just said in his post-match interviews that Todd had gone up 2 or 3 levels during pre-season, and that basically convinced him that Todd was ready. And on the whole, I think Todd will be reasonably happy with his performance going forward. Just to quickly recap as well, Tim Krul gets the nod in goal. Defence, as we expected, Aarons, Hanley, Godfrey and Lewis, and then it was McLean and Tribal started in midfield. Buendia, Steepman, Cantwell, with Pookie up front, of course. And going into half-time, we were worried. We thought, what's this going to be? Where is it going to finish up? But Norwich came out for the second half. Okay, there may be an element that Liverpool took their foot off the pedal a little bit. They've got a UEFA Super Cup game against Chelsea on Wednesday. Jurgen Klopp probably did say, don't go hell for leather. You've got this game won, and they did have the game won. But Norwich kept going. They performed well. They kept passing. Certainly that second half, I think Daniel just described it in his post-match interview that I was listening to as an outstanding second half. And certainly they leave here with their heads held high. Okay, the result is not good, and everybody outside of the Norwich City bubble will go, that's what we expected. Well, at least they scored a goal, that's nice for them. But it was more than that. Pookie scored midway through the second half. An absolutely lovely pass from Emi Buendia, slipped him through, and it was just typical Pookie. One touch into his path, fired it low, bottom left corner, gave Adrian no chance. And who knows, that could be a really important moment, just in terms of straight away, that looking for that first goal is off Pookie's shoulders. He can build on this night, and he had looked a little bit hesitant in the first half. There was an opportunity in the first half where he did hesitate and he didn't pull the trigger quite like he would have last season. But that was the Timu Pukki that scored 30 goals last season, and straight away that is an encouraging sign. Buendia with that kind of assist straight away. I think it was 18 in all competitions Buendia ended up with. So that side of things were good. Ben Godfrey I thought was very good second half. Tim Krul over the course of the game, I think it was 3 good saves in the end. So there were plenty of positives weirdly mixed in with a 4-1 defeat. So in the end, Daniel, the players, they've all filed through, and just speaking to Ben Godfrey, I think there's a degree of pride in how they ended up finishing this game. So in the end, you write it off, as I believe Tiger Woods used to do in golf. He used to put a blue marker under it on his whiteboard, and it's move on, it's done, it's over. There's 37 games left of this Premier League season to try and secure survival and a Premier League future, and this one's done. All you can do now is move on to Newcastle and try and take the positives from this. Otherwise, I think the part of the positive second half display was when Moritz Leitner came on. I still think he could have a major major part to play in this season. And he really added a tempo. He looked really fired up. He also forced Adrian into a shot, into a save, tipping a shot over the bar. He really added some urgency. So I think we will probably see Leitner starting next week, because Tribal went off after a bit of cramp midway through the second half, and him and McLean probably didn't affect the game enough at this level. But to finish on, really, you're not going to play this level of player every week. When you play Burnley, when you play Newcastle, when you play Brighton, Sheffield United, Villa, you are not going to be competing with this level of players. Mo Salah, Roberto Firmino, Virgil van Dijk, these are some of the top players in the world. And Norwich will leave here tonight feeling that they've put in a second half of 45 minutes there that's shown that if they can improve, if they can iron out those defensive mistakes, clearly needs a lot of work, but those first 2 goals, there was some real bad luck involved. So they head home to Norfolk, and they also have pretty much 2 days more recovery time than Newcastle, who play Arsenal on Sunday, and they can just get fully focused on that game, their first home game, play like they did almost in the whole game, not just that second half. If they play as they did tonight and don't get that bit of misfortune, I think they will beat Newcastle. So we shall see. As ever, it's going to be an incredibly interesting season to see how Norwich handle stepping up to this level. But you're not going to face Liverpool every week. So roll on Newcastle. Plenty of positives. Head to pinkman.com for the full report and reaction. And we'll have plenty more for you in the build-up to that game. And we'll catch up with you soon.